CMS had 22.6 as an increase, and the high school had 34.5 as an increase. Because those are temporary salaries. Sorry about that. I'm confused, Ms. Golding.
I am.
Summer school teachers?
For the extended programs?
For the extended year, right, for summer school.
Year, which is listed at 100,000 on this slide.
Right, and that would be, we already had some in there for elementary.
This is,
So I'm sorry.
that's the above, is that what you're saying?
Oops. Sorry. So that, ask me a question.
If the $60,000 increase over the 12-13 to get the budget request for 13-14 to $110,000 is the extended year program, why is it listed on this slide for all schools for extended year at $100,000?
That's just staff. That's staff. That's transportation, staff, and supplies.
And this is only salary?
That's correct. Temporary salaries is only the salary piece. And so the elementary, it was already in the budget. So the middle school put in 22.6 and the high school put in 34.5, which is just about 60.
So the supplies for that extended year program were about 18,000.
I did 15 at the middle school and 15 at the high school. And that's, I think those are actually highlighted in the body. They're tan, they're brown, black and white highlighted, but they are highlighted, the programs.
Other questions? Mrs. Kemp?
Looking for a page number here, but in the same section, page 6 of 7. The fourth object code has to do with library books. And as an example, it's a significant increase over the prior year and years. But I'd like to ask why it identifies only books when in fact some of the expenses are for books and some of the expenses in the library are for other media that we use in place of books, but you can't see that here in the budget.
Right, the line item is really library books and periodicals, and so that is what is there. The technology such as databases that people might access online, that would be in the technology area.
I understand that.
Okay.
I was kind of afraid of that because it doesn't tell me really easily when I look at the library environment what we're actually doing there. It's good that we're buying more text, more books and periodicals, but it doesn't give a board member an idea of how much we're investing in that library, at least not easily.
That's correct. If I recall, there are no new databases that were purchased for our libraries this year. They're all just renewal of licenses. So that would be mostly at the high school and the middle school, and I don't know that we have any databases in K through 5. While you're speaking of that, in the same section of that book, if you would look at the last page in that book, it's a white page, in that section, excuse me, not in the book. And what we tried to do there was to do per pupil spending, and I did this myself, so that was part of my weekend work. Our January 1 enrollment is there, The library books, so what is in that particular, that's library books and periodicals. So I put the total amount in parentheses for that particular school, and then the per pupil, the number of students divided by the amount of money, or the other way around, excuse me, what it would be. So you can see what each school is spending in that area. Also instructional supplies, I did the same thing there, and other supplies. And you can see I put the per pupil plus the all-day K supplies of $15,000 at those two. That's where the $30,000 was in school district, I'm sorry. The 15 per school, that was supplies, and I did not include those. I just put it there for your edification that there was an additional $15,000 for supplies in both of those schools. So the numbers there don't include the 15,000, because that would be above and beyond what's normally. The other areas, we're doing a lot of things centrally, so our professional development is done centrally in the central office budget, so it's available to all teachers. So if I'm a teacher, principal at Lake Street, I can say, I'm going to send my teachers to this. When the teacher at this principal at Center Road says, oh, I didn't even think of that, I didn't put that in my budget. So all teachers have an opportunity to engage in professional growth across the district. So that is, I didn't put anything about that. I also did not put technology because that's been centralized, and we are trying to build towards at least equity, if not, or equality, and then towards equity across the district. So that was just another piece of information. I don't think that was copied for the public, so I'm sorry I'm missing that one. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right, but I think we're spending more in the library support than these numbers indicate when we're only displaying the books and periodicals.
The edification on this third one.
Oh, we have an extra zero there, absolutely. Thank you. Mrs. Fisher found an extra zero in Skinner Road, and I'm sure Ms. Bordelot would be delighted to have $67,000 worth of other supplies. She does not have that much.
Mr.
Thank you.
Garcia, I've seen your hand.
We'll
Did you
fix that.
have a question?
Just through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Kemp, if you is what I find very helpful is if you go to any school to the white pages and look up 56,420, it breaks down, exactly where that whole account is being spent and what it's being spent on.
Every dollar.
It just helps us, like you said, it breaks it out more for us if you go to the white pages. Thank you.
Ms. Goldich.
If we go back to the per pupil spending page, looking at instructional supplies, there's still just looking at the elementary schools, there's still a 29% spread between highest per pupil and lowest per pupil expenditure. I know it was in our goals to have no more than a 5% differential among all of the schools for the first year, 2% for the next year. In library books, there's a 32% differential between highest and lowest. How do we fix this?
Well, in terms of library books, it would really be what's needed in the school. Some schools may already have more books than others. I know Mrs. Bordelot had put in her budget, not in the library books, but in instructional supplies, had asked for additional leveled readers for all of her classrooms. But you're right, to fix that, it would depend on what is needed in a particular school. If we have a school that has a program for autism, students with autism spectrum disorder issues, there may be other additional other supplies that would be there that would be in another place. I'm not sure how we fix that really without going into getting very granular in that, seeing what it is, how many books there are, making sure everyone has at least the same number of books. So
Well, if we promise the district as for our policy that there will be equality across the district, then we need to get down and dirty into the details and see just where these discrepancies do occur.
I agree.
Mr. Kemp.
on the first page of page 1 of 7, in the blue section that we're still in budget summary, the third item from the bottom is a request for 59, well basically 60,000 for curriculum development. In the prior years, we spent 8,000, 6,000, and 11,000 respectively. Could you help me understand what the request is for 60,000 in this budget?
Absolutely. Curriculum used to be, work in the summer used to be done by request. So a department chair would request of Mrs. Morasso, you know, we'd like to write a new course, a new English elective course. And that would be approved through the board. You would approve that, and the work would be done over the summer. We now have a 5-year curriculum revision cycle. So if you look at both this year, the approved budget is much higher than last year, and then next year it's even higher. And that's because we have people writing curriculum and are not done yet. English Language Arts is a huge curriculum, and we're still working on that. There was money in that for last year's budget, and mathematics as well. But we've added more curricular areas this summer that we have. You just saw the evaluation piece for science. They're now going to be writing curriculum this summer and then implementing it afterwards. So that's mostly all for summer work.
6 times what we did in the prior years?
Absolutely. I could use more, Mr.
This one.
When I look at the detail on the contingency account, 58400, under central administration, I understand contract negotiations, that's legal fees?
Oh, no, there's a legal line for the board.
Okay.
No,
Then-
that would be, so the board doesn't tip their hand in terms of negotiations. So if we're negotiating the nurse's contract, then we shouldn't automatically put in a 2% raise for next year. The board might say, okay, we'll put that in, but they would put it in this line item and not in the detail. So that, because then when you're negotiating with a union, the union says, well, I already know you've got that money. This year's a done deal. You can already give us 2%. And so that's what we have 3 contracts to negotiate this coming spring. And so that's in there. And all of the non-affiliates are in there as well.
And the enrollment-based teacher addition is in case enrollment goes up, is that what it is? There's money in there for that? And what are bus changes?
I'm not sure where you are.
I'm just reading it's the very last page.
Oh,
It
of
says
the detail?
An explanation of that account.
Non-affiliated, enrollment-based, right, enrollment-based teacher additions. So I know that Mrs. Poglich asked for an additional 4th grade teacher last spring after the budget was already, that's where that funding would come. So if we felt that we're going to need another teacher, that's where that would come from. Enrollment-based teacher additions. So if we have additional kids in the district that we need another teacher, that's where it is.
But that would be, don't you know that going in?
Absolutely not. Oh, no.
Do you
We get
usually
enrollment changes every day in the summer, and the week before school, we could get 30 second graders in one
So
school.
that's a usual, that's usually in this
Yes,
account?
just in case. And last year we did use it, or this current year we did use it.
Just for discussion purposes, so it's basically one teacher?
Correct.
Okay. And what are bus changes?
Mr. Picaro, can you explain what those changes would be?
So, through you, Mr. Chairman, any changes in the bus schedules that would affect the contract, we would have to look at the contingency account to draw those funds from. It's a small percentage that we built in there, but that's where we draw those funds from.
Thank you.
Mr. Percy.
I'd like to make 2 requests, one of them being in Dr. Conway's presentation tonight, she had the past 4 years of increases. The 0.3 to 3.76, the 0.2 decrease in the 1.5. I'd like to go back a little farther than that, maybe the last 8 years.